I didn't grow up believing in ghosts. I didn't believe in curses or spirits or anything that crawled out of stories told by people who were too afraid to look at the real world. I believed in numbers, measurements, things that could be proven. So, you understand why it took me far too long to realize something was wrong on Willow Street. The house at the end of the road was already abandoned when I moved in, or rather, I thought it was. Everyone in the neighborhood walked past it as if it wasn't there at all. Kids didn't dare each other to go inside. Teenagers didn't sneak in to spray paint or drink. Adults didn't complain about it dragging down property value. It simply didn't exist to them. But it existed to me, and that made all the difference. The first night the knocks came, I had been awake long after midnight, lying on the couch with my laptop still open, a half-empty mug of cold coffee sitting on the table beside me. I was drifting in that strange, blurry space between sleep and thought when it happened. 3 slow knocks on my front door. Not aggressive, not hesitant, just patient. I remember thinking someone must have been drunk, knocking on the wrong house by mistake. The knocks came again, identical, same rhythm, same weight, like someone was reading a script and refusing to deviate from it. I didn't get up. I didn't answer. I simply waited. Eventually the knocking stopped, and I assumed that was the end of it. I even laughed at myself the next morning for feeling uneasy. But the second night, it happened again. Right at 12:03 a.m., the same 3 knocks, the same stillness afterward. By the third night, curiosity won. I crept toward the door and pressed my eye to the peephole. And that was the first time I saw her. A woman in a long, dark dress that clung to her as if it were wet. Her hair dripped down her shoulders in tangled strands. She stared straight ahead, not at the door, not at the ground, but at some invisible point that felt disturbingly close to my eye. Her face was wrong. I couldn't explain it then. I can barely explain it now. It wasn't deformed or grotesque. It was just as if someone had taken the pieces of a human face and rearranged the smallest details. Angles, spacing, the tiniest fractions of shape until everything familiar was pushed into unfamiliar territory. Wrong, but subtly. Wrong in the way a dream feels wrong. I remember stepping away from the peephole and holding my breath, certain she could somehow sense me watching. Then, after a minute that felt like 10, she turned around and walked away. Except she didn't walk. Her body moved forward, but her legs didn't move quite right. The motion was fluid, continuous, like drifting through water rather than stepping through air. I didn't sleep that night. The next day, I asked my neighbors, casually, if they'd heard anything strange or if a woman had been seen wandering the street at night. Their reactions surprised me. They didn't laugh. They didn't look at me like I was crazy. They simply looked confused, as if the idea of someone knocking on a door after midnight was impossible to imagine. Nothing like that around here. We live in a quiet neighborhood, an older woman added. When I tried describing the woman, something even stranger happened. They went silent, not offended, not suspicious, just empty. Like I'd spoken a language none of them understood. Their eyes glaze over for the briefest moment. Then they change the subject. That's when I started to realize that something was deeply, fundamentally wrong. The knocking continued for 7 nights straight, always at 12:03, always 3 knocks, always that same posture, still, dripping, waiting, as if she had all the time in the world. On the 8th night, I watched her through the peephole again. Same dress, same hair, same quietly rotting expression. But this time, her head turned. Not fully, not naturally, just enough that one eye, too dark, too deep, lined up with my peephole. I stumbled back from the door, heart pounding. My house felt too small, too fragile, like she could push her way inside with nothing but will. I waited. Minutes passed, maybe hours. Time blurred into the kind of frantic awareness that comes only when fear becomes the air you breathe. And then I heard it. Her voice, right on the other side of the door. Soft, wet, whispering, "Why did you leave me there?"
I didn't answer. I couldn't. My tongue felt too heavy to move. My throat refused to work. I stood there frozen until the house finally went silent again. The next morning, something changed. The woman wasn't outside, but inside my living room, on the floor next to the couch, was a dark, wet footprint. Just one, bare, small, and unmistakably fresh. It pointed toward the hallway, toward my bedroom. I didn't have the courage to investigate. Not then. I threw away the rug, cleaned the floor repeatedly, pretended I didn't feel air move behind me whenever I walked through that hallway. Pretended I didn't hear soft dripping noises at night, like water tapping somewhere behind the walls. The knocking returned the next night, but this time it wasn't on my front door. It came from my bedroom. 3 slow knocks on the wall right beside my headboard. I sat upright, gripping the sheets, and listened. The house felt alive around me, breathing through its wood and plaster. When the knocks came again, they traveled, not stopping at the wall, but continuing down the hallway, slow, deliberate, as though she were walking with her knuckles brushing the surface. I held my breath. Then suddenly, the noises stopped. No walking, no knocking, just nothing. Until a new sound, a faint, steady drip, 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 drip. I turned my head, knowing exactly what I'd see, even before my eyes landed on it. A wet footprint in the middle of my bedroom floor. As fresh as the one in the living room, as impossible as the night itself. I didn't sleep. I couldn't. I sat awake until sunrise, staring at that print until it finally evaporated, as if it had never existed at all. The next evening, I decided I needed evidence. Proof that something was happening. Proof that I wasn't losing my mind. So I set up my phone to record the living room overnight, pointing toward the front door. At 12:03, the knocking began. I didn't go to the door this time. I just stared at my phone's recording light, praying it was catching something, anything. The knocking stopped. Silence stretched out like a widening crack. Then the air shifted. A pressure change. A sudden drop in temperature so sharp my breath fogged. And then I heard it. My name, whispered directly behind my left ear. I spun around. Nothing was there. But when I replayed the recording the next morning, I saw something that still haunts me. The door was closed, The lights were off, the room empty. But at exactly 12:03, a shadow slid across the floor. Not walking, not stepping, just gliding, as if someone were standing just outside the camera's view, as if someone was inside the room where no one should have been. And then, at the end of the recording, right before the battery died, a face appeared in the reflection of the window. Her face, but closer, clearer, more rearranged than ever before, as if she was still trying to remember what she used to look like. I dropped the phone. I sat on the floor shaking for nearly an hour. That day, I called the city records office. I needed answers. I needed something that made sense. I needed to know who she was, where she came from, where the old house on Willow Street fit into whatever was happening.
But when I told the clerk my address, she paused. "That street doesn't have an end house," she said. "It does," I told her. "I can see it from my window." Another pause. "I'm looking at the official map right now," she insisted. "There's no house at the end of Willow Street. There never was." I hung up the phone before she could say anything else. It was getting harder to breathe, harder to think, harder to pretend that I wasn't being pulled into something far older, far deeper, far more patient than me. That night, the knocks didn't come at 12:03. They came at 11:59. Earlier, faster, closer. And this time, when I looked through the peephole, because I couldn't help myself, because curiosity is a curse carved into human nature, I didn't see her on the porch. She was on the other side of the peephole, eye pressed against the lens, watching me, smiling with a mouth that didn't belong to any living person. I fell backward and crawled away from the door. The wood began to bulge inward as if something were pushing from the other side, not violently, but insistently. The knocking returned, but not with hands this time, with her forehead. Soft, wet, repeated. Thud, thud, thud. Each impact left a dark, dripping stain on the wood. And then she whispered through the door, through the cracks in the house, through the air itself. "Let me in. You left me there. Let me in." But I didn't. Couldn't. I pressed my back against the far wall, knees to my chest, shaking until sunrise burned through the curtains and the house fell silent again. When I finally gained the courage to approach the door, the stains were gone. No sign she'd ever been there, except for the note. Slipped under the door, written in ink so smeared it looked like water had soaked it. Just 6 words. "You remember now. I'm coming home." And that was when I knew this wasn't just a haunting. It was a return, a correction. A woman who vanished in a house the city swore didn't exist, who died in a place no one remembered, was now coming back to finish what had been left unfinished. And she believed I was the one who left her there. When I woke up that morning, the first thing I noticed was the silence. Not the peaceful kind, the type that feels like the house is holding its breath, the type that waits, the type that listens. I didn't know yet what the house had shown Lily during the night. I didn't know what she had heard beneath the floorboards. I didn't know why she was already awake, sitting in the kitchen with her hands wrapped around a cup of cold tea, her eyes unfocused, staring at nothing. But I knew, instinctively, that something had shifted. It wasn't just her. It was the walls, the air, the house itself. I tried to ignore it. I tried to pretend it was all in my head. But the moment I stepped into the hallway, I knew the house wasn't pretending anymore. Something was different. Something was wrong.
The wallpaper, for example. The night before, it had been faintly yellowed, curling in places, faded by time. Now the pattern, strange looping vines and clusters of small circular shapes, looked sharper, newer, bolder. And when I stepped closer for a second look, I could swear the shapes had moved. I reached out, touched the wall. It felt warm. Not like sun warm, like skin warm. I recoiled and immediately told myself I was imagining it, because the alternative was worse, that the house had a pulse, that the house was alive. I walked into the kitchen, trying to shake the feeling, but Lily didn't look up. She didn't even blink. Her breathing was shallow, her lips slightly parted, as though she'd forgotten how to fully inhale. "Lil?" I said gently. Nothing. I stepped closer. "Lil? Did you sleep?" Her head jerked slightly, like she was returning from somewhere far away. Then she looked at me, and God, I wish she hadn't. Her eyes were swollen and red. Mascara streaked down her cheeks. But it wasn't the crying that scared me. It was the emptiness. Like whatever fear she'd felt in the night had drained her dry and left only the shell. "I heard it," she whispered. "Heard what?" She swallowed. Her throat clicked. "The house." I felt a cold shock run through me. "The house made a sound?" "No." Her voice cracked. "It spoke." The kitchen suddenly felt colder. "Honey, houses don't..." It whispered my name. I opened my mouth, but she continued before I could speak. "And that's not all." She hesitated, trembling. "There was something else. In my room. Behind the wall." A soft sinking dread spread through my stomach. "What did you hear?" Lily stared at the table. A heartbeat. I wanted to tell her she was mistaken. I wanted to tell her she was tired, overwhelmed, stressed. But the truth, buried under all those comforting lies, was that I believed her, because I'd felt something too. Something subtle, almost imperceptible, but undeniably there. A presence. A watching. The sense that every move we made was being cataloged, studied, weighed. But the house wasn't the worst part. The worst part was what happened next. Around noon, I walked upstairs to check the plumbing in the master bathroom. Not because anything was wrong, but because I needed an excuse to move. I needed something normal to anchor myself, to push away the oppressive heaviness that clung to the air. I opened the cabinet under the sink and froze. Because carved in the wood, fresh enough that pale dust still clung to the edges, was a word. Hello. I closed the cabinet slowly, my hands trembling. Was someone messing with us? Some intruder hiding in the house? A person stalking us? I would have preferred that. Human threats I understood. But this felt intentional, intimate, like the word was meant for me. I walked into the hallway to call out for Lily and stopped dead. The wallpaper, the new sharp pattern, those looping vines, they were different again. Not drastically, not enough that someone unfamiliar with the house would notice. But the vines, subtle as a slight shift in posture, were angled in a new direction, pointing down the hall, pointing at me. I backed away slowly. I didn't want to panic Lily. Not yet. Not until I understood the scope of what we were dealing with. That was my mistake.
Because the house didn't want me to understand. It wanted to show me. That evening, Lily refused to go back upstairs.
I didn't blame her. She spent most of the afternoon sitting on the porch steps, staring into the tall grass, jumping at every slight movement. I wanted to sit with her, comfort her, hold her hand. But I couldn't shake the feeling that if I stopped paying attention to the house, even for a moment, it would take advantage of the opening. It would do something. It wanted to do something. I needed to know what. So after dark, when Lily fell asleep on the couch downstairs, I crept upstairs alone. Every step felt like trespassing, like I wasn't supposed to be there. At the top of the staircase, the air was thick and humid, heavy, breath-like. I turned on my phone flashlight. The narrow beam cut across the wallpaper, and I gasped, because the vines weren't just pointing anymore. They were reaching. Shadows stretched across the wall like long, creeping fingers, curling toward the ceiling, following the hall, leading straight to Lily's bedroom. I walked slowly, each step tighter than the last. My breath grew shallow. The floorboards groaned under my weight, but not with the usual random creaks. It sounded rhythmic, like the house was shifting, adjusting, leaning closer. When I reached her door, I saw something that froze the blood in my veins. The wallpaper had peeled back at the edges, pulled back, revealing a thin slit in the wall. A slit, like a mouth, lifting into a smile. I stepped closer. The slit pulsed. There was movement behind it. Slow, wet, organic. Something was breathing inside the wall. My light flickered. Something clicked deep within the house's bones. A groan echoed through the halls, low, deep, resonant, like the house was stretching. I stumbled backwards, heart pounding painfully, and ran. I didn't stop, not until I reached Lily, not until I shook her awake, gasping her name. She blinked in confusion, still groggy from sleep. "What's wrong?" The question was so small, so human, so vulnerable, and the truth felt too enormous to speak. But I forced myself to say it anyway. "The house," I whispered. "It's not just whispering anymore." Lily paled. What is it doing? I looked toward the dark hallway at the top of the stairs. It's growing. That night, neither of us slept. We sat on the living room floor, the lamp turned on, both of us facing the staircase like it was the mouth of some enormous predator. Hours passed. The house shifted, creaked, breathed. At one point, around 3 a.m., something lightly tapped on the wall right next to us. 3 slow knocks, as though the house was politely asking for permission to come in. Lily covered her ears and curled into herself. I held her, but my eyes stayed locked on the stairs. The tapping stopped, but the breathing didn't. It grew louder, heavier, close enough to feel the vibrations on the floor. And then, something whispered from upstairs. Not Lily's name, not mine, just one word, drawn out, wet, hungry, closer. The lamp flickered. The air turned cold. Lily grabbed my arm with white-knuckled terror. "I don't want to be here anymore," she sobbed. "Please, we need to go. We need to go now." She was right. We had to leave. But just as I stood to grab the keys, something crashed upstairs. A shattering, a slam, a dragging sound, like something massive being pulled across the floor. Then, footsteps. Slow, heavy, not from any human shape. Each step sounded like it came from something with weight, something huge, something crawling instead of walking. It reached the top of the stairs, stopped. We held our breath. My heart hammered in my chest so violently I thought it might burst. Then, a single, deliberate tap on the wooden railing. Tap. Tap. Like a finger or a claw, testing the strength of the wood. Then another. Tap. Tap. Slowly sliding down, coming closer. Lily sobbed silently. The third tap echoed through the entire house. Thump. Not a tap, a step. The first step down the stairs. I grabbed Lily's hand. "We're leaving," I whispered. But as I reached for the front door, it slammed on its own, hard enough that the frame rattled. The deadbolt clicked locked. The house wasn't letting us leave. And when the second footstep landed on the stairs behind us, we knew the house wasn't haunted. It was the thing haunting us. And whatever lived inside it was finally coming out. The sound on the staircase was no longer just a step. It was a declaration, a warning, a promise. Whatever lived inside the walls, whatever had spent days whispering, breathing, shifting, wasn't hiding anymore. It was descending, coming closer, claiming us. My grip tightened around Lily's wrist as the second footstep landed with a deep, hollow thud against the wooden stairs. The air stuttered. Something cold, like a breath made of fog, slid down the back of my neck. For a split second I wondered if the house was exhaling, or waking, or both. "Don't look at it," I whispered, but Lily was trembling too violently to respond. Her fingers dug into my arm, nails biting through fabric and skin. A third footstep, closer, heavy enough to make the framed photos on the wall tilt. Not falling, tilting, all angled towards us, toward the front door, toward the trapped prey. I pulled Lily gently but urgently toward the door again, even though I knew it was hopeless. The house had locked it. We'd watched it, heard it, a living organism closing itself to keep its meal inside. Still I tried. I shoved the door with my shoulder. It didn't budge. The deadbolt felt fused, melted into the wood. Behind us, the fourth step fell. This time the sound vibrated in the floorboards, trembling through my bones.
Whatever it was big. I turned to the side door, the one that led to the kitchen. We sprinted for it, our footsteps frantic, clumsy, loud compared to the slow, methodical rhythm behind us. As I reached for the kitchen doorknob, I froze. The wallpaper across the hall rippled, actually rippled,
like something massive brushed against the other side, distorting the surface in a swollen wave. The vines printed on the wallpaper twisted and turned, all of them pointing in the same direction. The stairs where the thing stood. Or maybe it was pointing the other way, toward us. The light overhead flickered violently as a shadow spilled down the staircase. Not a solid shape, more like thick smoke with weight to it. A silhouette with too many edges, too many limbs. Or not limbs. Appendages. The kind that slither or extend or unfold. "Open the door! Open the door, please! Open it!" Lily sobbed beside me, fumbling with the knob. I twisted it. It turned. The lock clicked. For a heartbeat, I felt hope. Then something banged against the opposite side of the kitchen wall. A hard, wet slap. Then again. Slower. Deliberate. Like a creature placing its hand against the wood and dragging it downward. The wall bulged inward, indenting around the invisible limb. Plaster cracked. Another footstep landed behind us. We were cornered. The house was closing in. "Basement," I whispered. Lily hesitated, her breath hitching in panic. No, not downstairs. It's the only door the house hasn't locked." The basement had been strangely cold since we moved in. Neglected, dusty, empty. The one place in the house that felt untouched by whatever was growing in the walls. Or so I hoped. I grabbed Lily's hand and pulled her across the kitchen toward the narrow basement door. The tapping on the wall behind us grew louder, faster, almost excited. The staircase groaned as something reached the bottom step. I yanked the basement door open. A cold burst of stale air hit my face. Darkness breathed up from the stairwell, the kind of darkness that felt too thick for an ordinary basement. Before I could second-guess the decision, I pushed Lily toward the steps. She stumbled downward, grabbing the railing to keep from falling. I followed her and slammed the door shut above us just as the footsteps reached the kitchen. The door shuddered violently. Something pressed against the opposite side. A long, slow drag of what sounded like claws or fingertips or the edge of something sharper. Lily whimpered, covering her ears. "It can't get in, right?" she whispered. I wanted to say yes. I needed to say yes, but I couldn't. Something thumped against the door again, hard enough to send dust raining down from the ceiling beams above us. The house moaned. Not the creature, the house. Like both were working together, like the walls were tightening, squeezing. I took a shaky step backward, one hand gripping the railing. "We need to move," I whispered. The basement stretched into a narrow hall of shadows. The single bulb hanging from the ceiling flickered and buzzed. At the far end of the room was something we hadn't noticed before. A door. A door that didn't match the rest of the basement. It was older, darker, thicker. The wood swollen and blackened with age. "I didn't know that was there," Lily breathed. Me neither. As soon as I said it, the door upstairs pounded again. Whatever was outside, whatever had grown in the walls, wasn't giving up. The creature dragged something sharp down the door, leaving long gouges that splintered the wood. Dust fluttered down like snowflakes. The basement lights flickered harder. Then I heard something impossible. Breathing. Not ours. It came from the far end of the basement, from behind the old door. Lily gripped my sleeve. "Don't open it. I might lead outside," I said, even though I didn't believe it.
Nothing about this door felt like escape. Her voice cracked with desperation. "It doesn't lead outside. You can feel it." And I could. A cold draft seeped from beneath the bottom edge, too cold for a basement. Not air, not wind, something else. Something that felt like it had movement and direction and intention behind it. Upstairs, the pounding grew louder, more frantic, more animal. The creature was angry and hungry, and it knew we had nowhere left to run. I stepped toward the old door, keeping myself between it and Lily. The wood was swollen, warped. Something had stained it, dark streaks like water damage, except when I leaned closer, I realized it wasn't water. It was too thick, too dark. A sour, metallic smell rose from it. A heartbeat thudded behind the wood, slow, wet, in rhythm with the house's breathing. "Please," whispered Lily behind me, "don't open it." But something inside the walls thumped from the other direction, shaking dust loose from the ceiling. The house groaned like its ribs were shifting. A crack split across the ceiling beam, jagged and sudden. We were being herded, cornered, driven toward the door we feared. "Lily," I whispered, "we don't have a choice." I reached for the handle. It was freezing, burning cold, painfully cold, and it turned on its own. The latch clicked. The door cracked open. A smell hit me like a punch, a rotten, damp earth smell mixed with something chemical and metallic. The darkness beyond was absolute. Not basement darkness, not natural. This was void, a place without light, a place that swallowed light whole. The door creaked wider. Something moved inside. Not a step, not breathing, a skittering. Fast, bone-like. Thousands of tiny legs or bones tapping against stone. Lily shook her head violently, stumbling backward. "No, no, no! Shut it! Close it, please!" But the house groaned again, and the basement floor tilted slightly, just enough for us both to stumble forward, pushed by the house. The creature upstairs slammed itself against the basement door with enough force to splinter the top hinge. Wood cracked. Screws screamed. Something inside the wall behind the door wiggled like an enormous worm twisting in mud. We were out of time. The basement door upstairs gave a long, horrible creak as it started to bend inward. Lily sobbed. "It's going to break through." I grabbed her hand. "We have to go," I whispered. "Into that?" she cried. Metal groaned upstairs. The lock sheared. The door frame cracked. I pulled her through the old door. We fell into the cold darkness as the basement behind us erupted in splintering wood and something massive crawled inside. The old door slammed shut on its own. The darkness swallowed everything. When I say it was dark, I don't mean low light or shadow. I mean absence. The kind of darkness that feels alive. The kind that presses against your skin. The kind that has weight. I fumbled for my phone to use its flashlight, but when I pressed the button, the screen flickered weakly, then died. Cold fingers of panic wrapped around my throat. "Lily," I whispered. Her hand found mine instantly, gripping it with shaking desperation. "What is this place?" she breathed. I didn't know, but I could feel the walls. They were narrower than I expected. Cold, damp, and wrong. Not stone, not wood. Something else. Something organic. I took a slow step forward, running my fingertips along the wall to guide myself. It pulsed, Just once, a small, subtle throb, like a vein. I yanked my hand away. Lily squeezed my arm. "Did you feel—" Yes. The air grew colder. Not basement cold, dead cold. The kind that feels like it comes from something ancient. Somewhere ahead, something clicked. A soft, delicate click, like fingernails tapping wood. We froze. The clicking came again. Closer. I pulled Lily behind me, my heart thundering in my chest. "Stay quiet." The clicking grew faster, skittering across the floor, along the walls, near our feet, above our heads. Then it stopped. Silence. Complete. Until a whisper right next to my ear. "Welcome home." I spun around, swinging blindly, feeling only cold air and emptiness. Lily screamed. A dozen thin, cold limbs brushed past us, skittering forward into the darkness. The otherworldly clicking echoed again, but now farther ahead. It wanted us to follow. The air behind us shifted as the old door creaked. Something sniffed on the other side, scraped. The creature from the house had followed us. We were trapped between two horrors. "Forward," I whispered. "Go, now." We moved through the darkness, our footsteps shaky and uneven. Every few seconds, the clicking creature scurried somewhere near us, but never touched us again. It was guiding us, or hurting us. The passage widened slightly. A faint glow appeared ahead, dim, sickly, pulsing like bioluminescent fungus. We stepped into a chamber, and finally we saw. The walls. They weren't stone. They weren't wood. They were flesh. Pale, veined, pulsating lightly with a heartbeat that wasn't ours. In the center of the chamber was something enormous. A mass. A living mass. Rooted into the walls, pulsing, breathing, feeding, and growing. Faces. Hundreds of them, pressed against its surface. Old faces. Young faces. Eyes stretched wide, trapped beneath translucent membrane. Mouths frozen in silent screams. Lily gagged, stumbling backward into me. "Oh God, oh God, oh God." The clicking creature skittered beside the living mass, climbing its surface like a parasite returning to its host. The mass shivered with pleasure. A voice, deep, gut-wrenching, vibrating the air, spoke. "You entered me." Another voice, layered over the first. A woman, a whisper, a chorus. "And now you will stay." The chamber pulsed. The house above groaned in response. The creature outside the old door roared. The mass quivered and stretched, opening. A wide, wet, gaping mouth formed in its center. Hands, hundreds of them, pushed toward us from beneath the membrane, some old, some small, some barely formed. Grasping, reaching, begging. Lily screamed, and I pulled her back as the floor under us pulsed like a beating heart. "We have to run," she cried. "There's nowhere to—" The wall behind us split open. A doorway. The mass had created it, inviting us deeper, or offering an escape. But escape to where? Above us, something massive slammed against the old door. The hinges snapped, dust rained down. We had no choice. I grabbed Lily's hand. We ran through the new opening, and the chamber collapsed behind us with a roar, sealing the creature inside. We fell forward, and suddenly we weren't in the passage anymore. We were outside, standing in the tall grass behind the house. Night hums and cricket chirps filled the air. The sky was normal. The wind was normal. The world was normal. Except the house behind us was breathing. Slowly, calmly. A massive inhale pushing the walls outward. A slow exhale pulling them inward. As though it were satisfied. As though it had eaten something else instead. The front door creaked open. A shadow stepped out. Tall, human-shaped, familiar. My breath stopped because the shadow wasn't a monster. It was me. A perfect silhouette. My height, my shoulders, my stance. The house exhaled, and the shadow smiled. Its smile was wrong. Too wide, too sharp. Lily clutched my arm. "That's not you," she cried. "No," I whispered. "It's the house." The doppelganger stepped forward. Slow, measured, predatory. The house inhaled again, and every vine in the wallpaper pressed against the glass from the inside like veins. The shadow me cocked its head. "You don't belong out here," it said in my voice. The house moaned, and the ground beneath us trembled, beginning to pulse. "We need to run," I whispered. Lily's grip tightened. "Where?" she asked. I looked at the forest, the road, anywhere that wasn't here. "Anywhere," I said, "anywhere but home." We ran. Behind us, the house let out a long, hungry exhale. The shadow me followed. Not running, just walking. Because it knew something we didn't. You can run from a place, but you can't run from something that lives inside you. And as I ran, I felt it. A pulse, deep under my skin. Slow, familiar, echoing the rhythm of the house. Like it had marked me, claimed me, prepared me. And somewhere far behind us, the house smiled.